listening to you has been fascinating. And everything you've said, I believe, costs money. And getting your expert witnesses, getting your fabulous lawyers who squeeze the information out of this company that I'm sure didn't want to give you all that information, all that costs money. So having the mayor, again, on the right side meant you had access to money. We need, we pass a hat. It's kind of quaint. It's nice. You've done much with the money you've gotten. God bless you. But it's like a totally different, it seems like we're fighting a totally uphill battle because the information that we need to get, all the facts you used to win, you had money.
Yep. So what I will tell you, and again, I run the risk of being a carpetbagger here, but what I heard today from elected officials, what I've heard from organizers, is that you're pretty close to having access to resources to get something done. You've got these multiple jurisdictions, and frankly, if you could just get them to take the initial step of studying the system, trying to get access to the information that we've talked about today, those costs would be relatively low and could be shared among the jurisdictions to provide additional information. That's what these elected officials are going to need, is additional information upon which to make decent decisions. If I were a council member in one of these jurisdictions, or if I were mayor in one of these jurisdictions and I thought that I could make a relatively modest investment in knowing more so that I could either move forward or, oh, thank you so much.
It tastes expensive.
Base. That's probably about right. Wow, the train slipped completely off the tracks. So frankly, one of the things that if I were an elected in one of these communities, and I knew rooms like this were filling up with folks who were interested in this topic, I would want more evidence so I could either say, giddy up, yeah, we need to move forward, or, you know what, folks, I got more information than you got, and it turns out you got to leave me alone because there's no there, right? It's really about information, and I think these folks owe it to themselves and to you to see if they can get that information. And again, I don't think those costs would be exorbitant.
What kind of pushback did you get from your community for the condemnation of private property, and how did you handle that?
So there was an evolution of thought, and I think an evolution of public sentiment. But none of us get too far out in front of the folks we serve. Generally speaking, we generally have a relatively decent sense of public sentiment, and what I heard, what I thought I knew, what I thought we could present as evidence in terms of moving this process forward suggested to me that we were in pretty good shape. We did the poll, we had about 70%. But in the beginning, we had lots of letters to the editor, and those letters suggested, yeah, it ain't broke, don't fix it. Gosh, I turn on the faucet, I get water. You guys can't fill a pothole. How are you going to fill my pasta pot? So we started with quite a bit of that, and we did our best to begin to address legitimate objections and questions. I am not going to condemn an auto dealer, a laundromat, a mall, a movie theater, a gas station, a restaurant, because A, they're not monopolies, B, they don't provide the sole source of an essential public service. C, we don't have any experience in running a restaurant or a gas station or a car dealership, but we sure as hell know how to operate a utility. And so this is a very different piece of private property that a conservative legislature in the state of Montana specifically called out as a piece of private property that could be taken at fair market value, right? So we're not waltzing in there and saying, get out, we own the thing. The advantage of the long process was that there was a fairly long period of education, and the more, we had a very able newspaper reporter who covered this issue from stem to stern, and her coverage, while, excuse me, it wasn't always perfect for us, but it was fair, and if you were paying attention, you got to learn a lot of what we learned. And the more people learned, the more they recognized, wow, maybe, yeah. So we had a bunch of folks who were true believers to start with, and then we started chipping away at the skeptics. And over the course of the long haul, in my opinion, public support has only grown.
Yeah, I've been trying to participate in this, the Monterey County water problem for a number of years, and it strikes me that you seem to want to find out more about what's going on, whereas the whole process here has been about, oh, we've got the experts that are in control of it. And how did you get it, into your city discussion? Because most of the discussion for the last 10 years has been in front of the Public Utilities Commission, and they're saying, we're taking care of it, just be quiet.
And Callahan is the expert.
Yeah, so how did you get it? So that it was actually the community that was doing something.
I think it started with opportunity. We didn't have a crisis, we had an opportunity. Some of what I've heard today would suggest crisis to me, or at least an alarming set of facts. And when I hear that you've got California American Water is paying fines because they drained a river and ignored. I mean, those are significant issues, and so if no one's hearing those alarms, I think you have to figure out ways to turn up the volume. And conversations like this one this evening, the work that these folks did today in assembling electeds to talk about this is a step in that direction. Raise appropriate hell. Be annoying. Issues don't go away in the city of Missoula because I ignore them, right? We have so it turns out water isn't our only thing, right? So we have an affordable housing problem in Missoula, and I don't get to just say, well, yeah, we sure do. Next, what else you got? We have a homelessness problem in Missoula. Yeah, we sure do. My job, because my citizens demand it of me, is to try to figure out ways to fix intractable problems, right? And so remind them, but be gentle.
There's public forum, there's 3-minute open mic, and anyone can tell the council members and the mayor what's on our minds, one at a time.
And we have a 3-minute open mic at the city of Missoula every week. We have a woman who reads from the Soviet art of brainwashing. In 3-minute segments, and she's been doing it for years. And we also have people who will come to the microphone. So if you haven't called my office with an issue, some folks think that the only forum they have is to come to a city council meeting during the public comment portion and say, I got a problem with the building department, or I got a problem with X, Y, and Z. Well, what I do is I write it down and I say, you know what, we're going to contact you tomorrow. Thanks for reaching out. Apologies for the inconvenience. Let's see if we can solve this problem. Issues like this do require a gentle reminder, and that's a pretty good guerrilla technique. It costs you nothing but time to show up. If 3 people showed up and spoke for 3 minutes at every commission meeting, it's like drip torture, right? I mean, the only way folks know that you care is if you tell them you care. And, you know, I suspect this is a choir here, so sing outside the hall. Go caroling.
I think you said that the survey showed 70% in favor of the condemnation procedure. That means that 30% were not in favor. Were there any principled objections that we should be cognizant of that would apply to us over the just Republican trolls?
It is important to pay attention to dissent, right? It really is, and to acknowledge whatever flaws we may have. I do want to clarify that the poll question was public ownership versus private ownership rather than condemnation versus non-condemnation. So we didn't talk about the method of acquisition, but we did talk about whether the public ought to own it, and I wanted to make that clarification. I'm not sure if I'm not sure if the question had been, should the city of Missoula take private property under Montana statute? We would have gotten necessarily the same result, but so I just want to be perfectly clear about the question we asked. But I think that's a fundamental question and a place to start, and then you can start to work on the details. That is a fundamental question in a world where folks are concerned with government overreach. I think one of the objections was, well, if you start taking this piece of private property, what's the next one? Are you going to take the garbage company? Are you going to what's next, right? And are you doing things competently today? Do you have the capacity to run a water system? Can you do that? I think those fundamental, thoughtful, critical questions are not only appropriate, and I think that's what skeptics had to offer. I think we have a responsibility to answer them.
Here, tourism and agriculture are, two of our biggest industries, and historically, the business community here has been very anti-public water. What was the attitude of the business community up there, and how do you think that affected your ability to do what you did? If they had been opposed in large measure, how would that have perhaps changed things?
So we spent time with the business community. So there wasn't a group that I wouldn't talk to about this. And in a number of cases, I spoke, and the president of Mountain Water Company spoke, and the Missoula Chamber of Commerce sponsored an educational forum wherein we had a not so much a debate, but a conversation about why we were pursuing what we were pursuing, and Mountain Water was in a position to argue its case, and ultimately, for us at any rate, I think the business community, particularly the building and contracting community, which had been constrained by the private water utility, there was some frustration there, and I think the frustration those folks experienced lent credibility to our effort. We could use that as a business example of why public ownership made more sense, and we could also talk about the public utility that is the wastewater system and how we use that to manage or encourage growth. So we had some real life examples of what public versus private ownership of a utility meant. And I think that did well for us. And I'm sorry I lost the other question.
Well, I was really asking if the business community had been against it, which has historically been the case here, would that have affected materially your ability to do what you did?
I think it would have caused us to do additional education and outreach. This city council is pretty good at listening, and I think had credible members of the business community come to us with strong objections, we would have paid attention to those objections and done our best to overcome them. There is a business argument for municipal ownership of a water utility. I think we can provide a number of examples of the business case, not the least of which is predictability. And if you're a water-intensive business and the owner of that utility changes every 3 years, and they're not investing in the system that you rely upon mightily for your livelihood and for the livelihood of those you employ, that's a problem. And where is the level of accountability there? You don't have accountability from the Public Service Commission. You certainly don't have accountability from a board of directors that lives in Dubai. But you certainly have accountability from the 12 people who you see on the soccer field or in the grocery store or in the restaurant or, well, not hotels, no.
Another point that Tasha brought up today, she said, what's the difference between paying your desal, whatever it costs, the 100 million, or keeping the money local, or paying Cal-Am 100 million plus cost? So which would you rather do? Pay it 100 straight on and keep the money locally, or pay Cal-Am plus cost? So that's something to think about. Yeah, plus profit.
Here's a very simplistic analogy because I am a simple man. Imagine paying an absentee landlord rent for a place that's not being particularly well taken care of versus taking out a mortgage, reinvesting your sweat, your money, your time, your commitment, and owning the thing, right? To me, that's fundamentally, so here's the dirty little secret, government is us. Do we trust ourselves enough to do the right thing? And I think the answer is yes.
I've got.
Well, we'd like to thank the Missoula team right here for coming out and making the effort to join us. It's perfect timing for us. Their enthusiasm is contagious, and we hope to take their suggestions to a winning campaign. So thank you. And we put together California products for them to take home.
Thank you so much. That's lovely. Thank you, Janice. Completely unnecessary.